So we all know Billy Sheehan's reputation for his blistering right-hand speed. On top of his technique, which we're going to cover here real quickly though, there's one thing that he says on top of that that makes a crucial difference to him being consistent and really going over the top when he needs to. So that's what we're going to cover this time. So first, let's just talk about his right-hand technique, and we'll see why that trick that he does is so important. Billy Sheehan is a three-finger player. What he does, though, is a different type of rotation than a lot of players do. Most three-finger technique comes from almost a flamenco style, starting on the index finger, going to middle, to ring, and then back to get a set of fours. So you would get a... What he does is always roll from the index or ring finger forward, and you move the accent on each one of these fingers to get a 4 out of it instead of a triplet, where you might usually be going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, so that you don't get... You want to move the accent first from the ring to the middle to the index, so you get... So he's always doing this, which it's the same method I use. I know Alex Webster from Cannibal Corpse, who also has just crazy right-hand technique, does the same thing. And it just feels a bit more natural. It's the same way you roll your fingers or you drum on a table or anything like that. And for me, it's a little easier to move from 4s to 3s by just keeping everything in the same motion. So, on top of that, one of the other things about his technique is that he keeps his fingers really close together in a very small grouping. So if instead of spreading way out where you're going to get clumsier with it, it's going to become more erratic, keeping those fingers tight is, one, economy of motion, and it also keeps everything in smaller groupings that are more efficient. Now, what he says is the crucial part of this to him. It's actually his pickup height. What Billy does is he raises his pickups up as close to the strings as possible, and he simulates what people now call a ramp. Billy was doing the ramp way before there was a ramp. Now, to create a ramp out of his pickup, Billy plays with a P-bass style pickup at the neck, where he plucks and keeps his hand over, and to match the radius of the fingerboard, what he's doing is he screws each of these blocks a little differently, meaning that on this side, he's got it pulled down a little bit, and this end raised up a little bit, then this one raised a little bit, and this one pulled down, so you kind of simulate the radius of the fingerboard so that it's the same distance from the string to the pickup on each one of these. Now, why is this so important? Because what this does is, if you play in an area like this, and you're plucking, your fingers can drop in between the strings almost down to the body. Or if your pickups are set really low at a really long distance and you hook a lot more of the string coming up. With the ramp, your finger's always in touch with the top of that pickup, and it becomes like a smearing. You're never diving that far into it, so your recovery is much faster than if you were here. It gets a lot more grabby, and if your technique isn't really on it, or if you get that live adrenaline and you start really pulling, your fingers get in between. Instantly, it's like having an anchor or a weight on your leg and you're trying to run. And again, this is the same principle that gave birth to what you see a lot of players now having, which is called a ramp. And usually they'll have a block of wood that actually matches the radius of the neck, and they'll set it in between the pickups or maybe an extension from the fingerboard. But I prefer it the same way he does it, in that because I'm used to playing over the pickup, and that's where I feel I get the most response and the most attack by getting right on it, using the actual pickup as a ramp feels the best and sounds the best to me. Now, one other problem that he had to contend with that I don't, because I've got the EMGs, which are flat covered on the top, but on his, he uses DiMarzios, and you might use maybe Seymour Duncan or something like that, that have the exposed pole pieces. If you raise your pickups up, your strings are going to hit those pole pieces, you're going to get a loud whack out of it, and yeah, it's generally not good. So Billy started soaking his in epoxy so that he would have a plastic barrier in between the strings and those pole pieces. It's kind of a long way to go for this, and thankfully now we have some cheaper and much easier ways to get around that. I think in a later video I'm going to cover a number of DIY ways and guerrilla tactics on different types of pickup casings to get a ramp if you want to play right over top of it. But for this example, just doing the P, if you have exposed pole pieces, you can do an easy solution that looks like this. Super simple. Go to a dollar store and get one of these clear plastic phone protector cases. They already are self-adhesive, they're easy to cut, and what you do is just peel them off, lay it over the top of your pickup, take an X-Acto knife and cut it to shape. You've got something that doesn't alter the look of your pickup, it's easily removable, and it's going to cover those pieces, and again, doesn't change the look of your base, doesn't change the feel of the pickups or anything about it, but it gives you that protection from it without having to put nail polish on the poles or soak it in epoxy or any of the number of bizarre kind of modifications you might have to do. And if you decide you hate your pickup later, you can still sell it because it hasn't been all gunked up with a bunch of crap all over it. So again, it's easy $1 solution, and that'll get you a guerrilla style ramp if you've got pole pieces on the top of your pickup. And so that you can see directly what this looks like, again, if you see the distance in between my finger in the string and the finger in the pickup, it's right up on it, and you can see my fingers touching every time and dragging across that string. It also, because you have the small distance on the pickup, if you try and keep all your fingers on top of it, it mentally just kind of keeps you in that placement of getting that small grouping, and it has a huge benefit. Billy has said in a couple interviews that this really is one of the huge tricks and ways he keeps his speed up and consistent is raising those pickups. I saw him actually try out a bass one time, and he made a point of showing it that when the pickups were lower, it became, even for just speed demon like him, it became a lot more difficult for him to be able to get that type of just fluid ripping three-finger technique out of it because, again, fingers keep falling in between. So it's a simple thing, but it's a cool one, and it can do a huge amount for ramping up those BPMs on how fast you can get shredding with these fingers. So I hope that helps. Check it out. Take a look at his bass. Check out Billy's videos, and especially when it's close up, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. In any case, that's going to do it for this one. I got more tips, tricks, all kinds of stuff coming up, and if you haven't checked out some of the recent demo stuff I've done, going to link to it at the end. Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff, and I will see you on the next one.